Should I donate to the Salvation Army? We get this question a lot, and I made this video to give you an understanding of what you should think about and what you need to know before deciding whether or not to make a donation. My name is Lori Styron. I am the Executive Director of Charity Watch. We're a national charity rating and watchdog organization founded in 1992 and based in Chicago, Illinois. So with that out of the way, should you donate to the Salvation Army? There's a few things to know. First of all, the Salvation Army is a religious organization that, as far as the IRS is concerned, is a church. So what this means is that it is not required to disclose a lot of information that other charities are required to disclose to the IRS every year. In their IRS tax form 990, the Salvation Army is not required to submit a tax form 990. So what that means is that there's a lot of governance and compensation information that other charities have to report every year that the Salvation Army does not have to report. So there is a little bit of an accountability gray area there where, yes, and I'll get to this in a minute, we do have access to some financial information, but not a full, a full accounting of all the nitty gritty details that are available about, nonprofit organizations in the U.S., as charities specifically, that do not have this religious exemptions. That's something to think about. I see Google searches a lot where people ask, what's the salary of the people who run the Salvation Army? And, we don't know. So, so why is Charity Watch able to rate them? Well, and I sort of might criticize that lack of disclosure with the IRS every year. They are not required to file that document, but I want to give the Salvation Army kudos for choosing to provide to Charity Watch its audited financial statements every year, because they are not required to send these to us. They're not required to send them to state and federal authorities every year with any kind of annual accounting and reporting. So give them credit for being transparent in this regard. We don't have access to quite as much detail as what's available in the 990, but in another way, audits are actually better in another way because they're more reliable. Often charity tax filings, they're self-reported by the people who work at the charity. Sometimes they have their outside accountant do it, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of 990s we see, tax filings that we see at Charity Watch that are incomplete, incorrect, inconsistent from year to year. And it creates a lot of problems when people take that information at face value or look at ratings that are based on the face value of that information if it hasn't been adequately analyzed. Audited financial statements are produced by third-party certified public accountants that follow generally accepted auditing standards and present the financial information according to generally accepted accounting principles in the United States. So, auditors have an incentive to be accurate and follow those standards because they're not, they're independent from the charity. The Salvation Army actually consists of 4 separate legal entities that are separated by region. So when you're going to make a donation, unless it's a cash that you're putting in a kettle, when you're going to make a donation, you actually have to pick the legal entity that you're sending that donation to. So the Salvation Army is basically organized by region. So there is what is it? I should have this memorized. I've been looking at their financials for almost 20 years now. The Salvation Army has a central territory, southern, eastern, and western territory. So depending on what part of the country you live in, most likely you would write a check to one of those specific organizations. At charitywatch.org, we have their tax ID numbers listed, and those are hard to find because it's a church. So they're not in the normal charity databases that you might be able to find elsewhere online. We have them, and we have them on our website at charitywatch.org. So if you need those for tax purposes, please visit our site. And the last thing I want to say, and this is more of a philosophical consideration, is, people become very, very polarized, and a lot of issues have become very highly politicized when maybe they don't need to be, right? Because at the end of the day, what's the purpose of charity? It's to help people. It's to make the world a better place. And you know what? You can't, it's just not possible to only help people that you agree with 100% about everything, right? I mean, realistically, if we're going to be generous with our money, but also generous of spirit, we have to consider that, sometimes you donate to a charity and maybe it's a religious charity and maybe you don't philosophically align with every single thing that charity is doing. The Salvation Army in particular kind of got itself into a no-win situation because, you know, as it sort of moved a little bit more towards being a little friendly, it's friendlier to the LGBTQ plus community, and also a little bit more, how do I want to say this, cultivating more of a self-awareness about racial issues and things like that. It got, you know, it got a lot of criticism from both sides, right? You know, one side thinks they don't go far enough. The other side is angry that they're, you know, bringing these things up at all, or that they shouldn't be a consideration due to the underlying religious, you know, philosophy of the organization. And so, you know, organizations, they kind of get themselves in a situation where they can't win and they cannot possibly please everyone. So here's a bigger picture way to think about it. When you're thinking of donating to a religious organization that maybe doesn't totally align with your personal religious philosophy, or you know, other philosophies, secular humanist philosophy, or whatever you believe in, consider, you know, this charity quite likely, because it's so large and established and you know, all throughout the country, they're quite likely providing services in communities that, were they to not provide those services, that no one else would step in and do it. So for example, if you boycott donating to the Salvation Army because, you know, you don't believe that they go quite far enough on LGBTQ plus issues, it's highly possible that they might be working in areas where they're the only organization providing certain types of services to people in that community that include the LGBTQ plus community. So it's not binary, you know, life is complicated, and you know, you have to, right? We when we're young, we think the world is black and white, and then you get older and you realize it's a little bit more complicated than that. And so, okay, so let's answer the question. This is a long video. Let's answer the question. Should you donate to the Salvation Army? You know what? It's up to you. You get to decide. The purpose of this video was to give you the information that you might need to try to help you decide, and I hope that I did that. And we have a lot more information about the Salvation Army and the different legal entities of that organization and other things to think about on our website at charitywatch.org. I hope that this was helpful. Thanks.